our site's a glimpse of Roman Britain archaeologists have been missing before. One of a large rural population, of widespread industry and recycling, stimulated by a new commercial culture. And Phil's triumphed with more evidence of this transitional time, with a structure to show off. Yesterday evening, the only tangible archaeology we'd got was stains in the ground, except in the pub. To much hilarity, it has to be said, Phil alleged that he'd got a wall, and the evidence for his wall was 3 manky stones. Have you still got a wall?
Totally vindicated, Tony. Absolutely. Those 3 manky stones that you described them as, look, this is what they are. Look, there they are, going through there. And the edge of the trench, as we saw it, came across there. Now, we've subsequently pushed that back, and look, we've got 1 stone there, we've got another stone there, but we've also got an inside edge to the wall as well, which is coming around there. And you can see the whole thing is curving back round. Now, I think that this is probably going to be a furnace or a kiln.
Hang on. The furnaces you've shown me in the past don't have that light clay stuff there. They're always black.
That's after they've been used. This one was never used. It was either constructed and it fell down because there was a flaw in the design, or failing that, they didn't need it. Maybe it just collapsed, maybe it was just unstable. But the thing is, this has never been fired. This is what they would have looked like when they were built.
How does that fit in with what you're thinking about this place?
I think it fits in perfectly. You know, we tend to think of Roman towns as all those regular places, like Lincoln, for example, with its grid of streets and its big public buildings that go up at great expense and are there for hundreds of years. But all these other minor settlements, well, if you come here 1 year and then the next year or maybe 5 years later, it would look different every single time, with an enclosure built up for one job owned by one person doing one particular activity. It gets knocked down or washed away in a storm or something like that, but it's constantly changing.
A bit like a town in the developing world nowadays.
Yeah, if you were to go to a place, I don't know, in Africa, for example, you'd find a shanty town where the buildings are made out of corrugated iron and timber, and they're only there temporarily and replaced by other things. They're surrounded by drainage ditches. And most of all, what you always find there is there's lots of modern Western rubbish or manufactured goods that have come in from outside. And that's the sort of thing we've got here, isn't it? A kind of shantytown settlement, but all those flashy brooches and other manufactured goods.
Yeah, because even nowadays, in a shantytown, you'll see a few loaded people with a lot of bling.
Absolutely, yeah.
With only a few hours to go, we've at last shed light on the Roman story of our site. But Francis is still so determined to reveal the prehistoric story, he's digging the enclosure ditch himself.
Sorry, Francis, I didn't realise it was you. Is it a post hole? A post pit?
Yes. Back here it is. Going down there.
That's massive, isn't it?
It's very big, John. It's very big.
But you're still not at the bottom of the ditch.
No, and the ditch is rather wider than we thought. It's at least 3 metres. Yeah, move over
So
a
what,
bit.
edge here?
Yeah, from there to where Ian is. I mean, that's a big feature.
Yeah, but any dating?
Well, yes. This post has been dated by pottery. This stuff here, and that's a cordon jar, cordon bowl, late Iron Age, so that's about the time of Christ, roughly. Now, that post hole is cut into a completely filled up ditch, and we've got 1 bit of pottery out of it. It's not much to write home about, but I've shown it to our pot specialist, and this is, I think, early Iron Age pottery. So my bet is that this enclosure ditch was dug sometime in the middle of the 1st millennium BC, so any time between, say, 300 to 500 BC.
So this post, dating to about the time of Christ, was pushed through a ditch that was created up to 500 years earlier.
I mean, that's coming together really well then, isn't it?
It's fantastic, John. I am so glad you found this feature.
We came to Wickenby to investigate a Roman site. In doing so, we've uncovered a very early prehistoric site that grew into a vast and important Iron Age settlement. When the Roman economy arrived, the rural settlement here embraced it. People here were trading with coins, building kilns, working metal and even stone. This community constantly changed and recycled, adapting to a new Roman world.
either a threepence or a sixpence, most likely of Elizabeth I.
Could it be something a bit special?
It's already special, I think.
As well as this fantastic find, we've also discovered coins that are over 100 years earlier than the current house.
I can see a crown. I can see a crown because we've got one of the there. I'm so excited, I actually knocked the light over. You can see one of the fleur-de-lis is complete in the middle, and you can see a half fleur-de-lis at the end. So that's the angular end of a crown.
So here we go, the timeline. This is the Bronze Age, little piece of pot there. Nothing in the Iron Age. Nothing in the Roman, nothing in the early Christian, or the Viking, or the Norman. Here we are in the 15th century. We've got 2 coins. 16th century, a thimble. 17th century, a ropey piece of tile. 19th century, a penny and a bit of pot. Helen, what's happened?
Well, from the archaeological evidence, it seems like we have a bit of activity here in the Bronze Age, and then a great lot of nothing, until sometime in the 16th century, people start dropping things. Maybe they built a house, and then they apparently went away again.
I have to say, in defence of all the people who were living in all these vast eons of time, they might have been making stuff that hasn't survived in the ground.
They might have been, but that's absence of evidence, and it's really dangerous to use that to argue that that is evidence of absence.
Yeah. We're now confident that echoes of that prehistoric landscape would have been visible in the 16th century. But our hunt for an earlier medieval manor has been a completely different kettle of fish.
Well,
Digging produced nothing to the east of the building, while geophys and test pits showed nothing to the south. The results weren't too hot either to the west. And as for the north, well, we did find an electrical cable and a dead horse. If I was feeling generous, I'd call it a mixed result. OK, after 3 days' excavation, are we in a position to say whether or not there was a medieval manor anywhere on this site before this one?
yes, we are in a position to say that.
And what's the answer?
No, there wasn't. I'm certain. Not one scrap of medieval pottery from all these holes we've dug. And if there was a medieval house here, we'd find pottery everywhere. I'm sure of it. It's just not there.
You've not even seen any background manuring on the fields you get when privies are cleared out and they chuck the stuff on the land. We've not got any of that.
Which rather begs the question, why did they build this place on a greenfield site?
If you think about what originally brought us to this site, it was that people saw an earthwork over there, and if it was visible in the 1970s, it should have been visible in the 1570s as well. I think that is what drew them here, and we know that there was an interest in the past on the part of the Pritchards, and we know that there's an interesting field name of Hendra. I think those all point to this being a special place.
That's quite interesting. You're saying they might have built this place here because in folklore it was an important site.
I think there's every chance of that, yeah.
So we now know the Pritchards didn't come here until the 1550s, when they built a beautiful, if somewhat old-fashioned house on a major crossroads beside some ancient, mysterious earthworks. And it's tantalising to think that they were trying to forge a link with the great Welsh hero Ifor Bach, the 12th century icon from whom the Pritchards claimed to be directly descended. Dan, I was just talking to a couple of local people who work here, and they were over the moon that we'd managed to take the story of this site right back to the prehistoric.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful. You know, I mean, you always hope that you're going to find things that are really fascinating, but to find out we've got something that's a Bronze Age enclosure, it's wonderful.
And we've dated your house.
Yeah. Which was, you know, every little bit extra just makes more of the story. It means we can tell a better story.
Bridge and Ian's area of burnt material has produced one final surprise which may help to nail down the story of our mysterious prehistoric monument.
Ian, look at this. I think I might have another piece of pottery, but I'm not sure actually what it is. It's very dirty.
Oh, no, I don't think it's pot, it's daub. Look, that's where the hazel road went through.
Of course it is.
Watland daub.
That's absolutely brilliant, because yesterday we had some burnt daub up that end there.
There you go. This is the
That's
house.
very nice.
We've got the house.
Wattle and daub was made by weaving hazel rods together. and then daubing them with a mix of mud, straw and dung. Our daub may have been part of the palisade around the monument. Phil's post holes suggested a circle of timbers, and in between there may have been wattled hurdle, making it continuous. And this structure would be more typically Neolithic than Bronze Age. Funny that they didn't seem to be able to do circles, though. Phil himself has found a quiet spot and is now in his own personal heaven.
What's happened to you then? You've been sent into exile?
Not at all. I've just been playing. I've just been getting so much hassle from everybody up on site about stone tools. I keep talking about these stone tools. I keep eulogising about them, and they keep wanting to ask me all about them. So I'll tell you what I've done. I've pinched a couple of the best ones. Yeah. That nose scraper. And while nobody's looking, I'm going to make a couple. There you go. That wood.
Yes, that's not far off, is it?
That would have been the right blank, you see.
Yeah. So what you're actually using here, though, isn't classic flint, is it? It's chert.
Well, that's right. It's the flint equivalent out of the green sand.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, I have devil's own job talking to all the locals around here because they keep on talking about this as flint.
Yeah.
And to me, this light is, as you say, it's chert, but it works just as well. Yes, better. Look at that.
Yeah.
Lovely straight edge.
Yeah.
I mean, that is razor sharp.
Yeah.
Absolutely razor sharp.
The chert tools that have inspired Phil are the best evidence that our monument's Neolithic, about 5,000 years old. But the pottery is all Bronze Age and could be over 1,000 years later. Our experts have got together to see if they can crack this puzzle. We were so excited about this pottery that we asked you to drop everything and come up here from Salisbury to see us. What is it?
Well, this is a very interesting little collection of early Bronze Age pottery. There seem to be several different vessels represented here, of which this is probably the best example. This is a rim from an early Bronze Age collared urn. Here.
Do we know what that would have been likely to have been used for?
These vessels are quite often associated with funerary remains. They're used as burial urns, but they can also be used in a domestic context.
Give us a date. What do you reckon?
I'd say somewhere between 2000 and 1500 BC.
Miles, what about the tools?
Well, there's a nice sort of range of scrapers and knives and notch flakes coming up, so quite a dense collection of tools.
Now, earlier today, you said to me, I'm sure this is Neolithic, and yet you're now saying that it's Bronze Age. Do we have a problem here?
Well, certainly with the flint work, they're sort of, I would say, late Neolithic and or early Bronze Age.
Yeah, so there could be a chronological overlap between the two.
What I don't understand is we've got this huge egg which is representing our site, right? And we've got our hedge here. All these finds came from a trench just here on the ditch. These ones came from here, but nowhere round the rest of the ditch have we found anything at all. What do you think is going on?
Well, I think it's important to bear in mind that all this material is coming from a very sort of organic, rich, charcoal-rich layer in the upper levels of the ditch. So there's some kind of deposit going on. This is not rubbish material. This is some kind of deliberate deposit of flint tools, chert tools and pottery.
Why are people burying their tools and their pots?
People are coming up here in the very late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, depositing these tools, this pottery, in the upper levels of the ditch, in much the same way, I suppose, that 3,000 years later, the Romans are coming up and doing the same thing with their coins.
This site has produced one of the biggest range of finds we've ever seen on Time Team. From 5,000-year-old Neolithic chert tools to 500-year-old medieval coins. There's something from every period. And together they've unlocked the secrets of this site. We came here looking for a Roman temple and instead found what we thought was a classic Bronze Age barrow. But it's now clear that our thing began its life in the Neolithic about 5,000 years ago as an enclosure ringed by a ditch and quite possibly by a palisade which was later burnt. The enclosure may have been used to display dead bodies. Tools and pottery were also deposited in two sections of the ditch. In the Bronze Age, a mound was thrown up using material dug from quarry pits just outside the ring ditch. The mound was probably still visible in the Roman period, and local people passing by were moved to bury their coins next to it, which is where we came in. Do you remember on day one, about midday, when we weren't filming and you grabbed my arm and you said, "Oh, I hope we haven't got you here on a wild goose chase"?
That's right, we were concerned it was just a pot of coins and there was nothing else here.
Well, it was far more than that, wasn't it?
That's right.
What does the guy who's not interested in archaeology think of it?
Well, there's something in it, isn't it? Gets you after a while.
You glad we came?
Yeah, really glad. Had fun.
You know, I can't remember a time team that's been more of a roller coaster ride. Can you, Mick? And it all ended up with this fantastic late Neolithic burial mound, the ditch of which is being lovingly created by the whole team. And the finding of this was a fantastic piece of luck. This was dug 5,000 years ago, and it would probably have remained a secret till the end of time. Certainly we would never have come here if it hadn't been for a handful of finds deposited by a group of people worshipping a completely different set of gods 2,000 years ago.
Hello, my name's John Gator. Time Team is fan funded by Patreon. This vital support helps us to make new episodes. Joining Patreon gives you access to exclusive interviews, 3D models and masterclasses, plus lots more.